This one? This one. Okay?
Present.
Push it. Okay, let's start.
All right. Good afternoon. Today is September 14th, 2019. And today we discuss globalization. Actually, we're discussing a number of very important trends that are happening in the world. And basically we started with populism, with Brexit and Boris Johnson, with Trump and with Salvini, politicians that come to power in the Western world. And why? And we call these politicians like populist politicians. What is populism? Populism is basically a political movement where the politicians are trying to give back power to the people. So they are trying to basically restore the power balance as it was before, like what's happening in the middle class, with the middle class in the United States. We see that a lot of people were angry. They didn't see their income rise. They didn't see their situation improved while other people in the United States were getting very rich. Actually, a lot of people in the middle class were sinking into the lower class. And now there are new threats like automation, globalization that threaten the middle class. And they feel they no longer matter. They're no longer in the center of society. And politicians like Trump say, okay, I'm going to restore this. I'm going to stop immigration. I'm going to renegotiate all the multilateral deals in a bilateral way. And he's becoming very popular, not by creating bridges, building bridges between different groups, but by basically prioritizing one group and looking for confrontation with others. Now, this is also happening in Europe. The European situation is a little bit different. Also, Europe is seeing very slow growth. The gaps in terms of income in the European society are less big than they are in the United States, but they are actually growing. Europe used to be very egalitarian, but if you look, for example, to the income distribution in Germany, that is there are large gaps between rich and poor. Other countries, like especially Scandinavian countries, the Netherlands, North European countries, the gaps are considerably smaller. But what did happen in Europe is that we saw mass immigration from conflict zones in the Middle East and from Africa. And that actually resulted in a lot of dissatisfaction with governments. They said, okay, well, if you cannot even look after me, how come you're letting in so many new people into our country? Why don't you first take care of me before you do that? So we see this populist movement, and we're going to look in this series. We have been looking at what is driving this political movement. We started off with a video from Ian Bremmer. Ian Bremmer is a famous American journalist and a writer who owns a news agency. And he has people in almost every country in the world who observe the political situation, and he sells his research to clients, sometimes countries, sometimes big corporations. Ian Bremmer is the face of the company. And what he highlights is the difference between globalization and globalism. Globalization is basically the economic movement where the economies are globalizing. That means that a lot of manufacturers, a lot of companies, they don't limit themselves to their own country, but they are looking for other countries. One way by actually outsourcing part of their production to these countries, and in another way that they're looking for new markets. So this this trend of globalization, this has been going on for a couple of decades, and what we see actually is that globalization has resulted in dramatic growth of wealth in developing nations. 30 years ago, 2 out of 3 people was living under the poverty line. Today, it's only 1 out of 5. So the wealth in the world has grown dramatically, mainly driven by globalization. So this is actually very good news. The bad news is actually for the middle class in the developed nations, in the United States, Europe, and to a lesser extent, but also in Japan, is that they have not seen their income rise over the past 30 years. Almost zero wealth increase for the middle class. So this is actually, this comes to the second term that Ian Bremmer introduces, which is globalism. And globalism is actually the political movement that sells globalization. So globalism is basically politicians telling the people that they need to open up their economy. They need and because competition is good, we need to grow our economy. So we need to engage in international deals. We need to engage in international multilateral trade agreements, because ultimately this will lead to wealth growth. But the problem is that the wealth growth is indeed there, but who is benefiting from this growth in wealth? That's not the middle class. That's the elite. And what Bremmer is claiming is that actually now what we see is that there is an elite is coming into existence. The elite who knows how to drive this trend of globalization, and they are trying to monopolize this globalization. They are trying to give favorable positions to their group, their inner circle, their children, their friends, and it's becoming more and more difficult for people to benefit from this globalization, because it's no longer accessible to everyone. So globalism is what drives populism, is what Bremmer claims. People feel that the system is rigged. I don't know if you heard Trump say that, but he's saying that almost every week. The system is rigged. We are not. This is not a fair system. Basically, we are being. We are being. How to say that?
Deceptive.
Deceived. Yeah, deceived. Yeah, we are being deceived. And basically, we need to do something to re-establish the normal. We need something to basically put all these multilateral trade deals behind them, because you are not benefiting from these multilateral trade deals. It's only the wealthy people who benefit from these trade deals, not you. You are just your jobs are just being given to Mexicans and to Chinese, and they are laughing all the way to the bank, to use an American expression. So globalism is actually something that drives populism. And then we had a look at, okay, so what kind of challenges do we have? How is the system rigged? Why? What is happening in the world that makes that some people can benefit and other people cannot? And we have been looking at global tax system.